Hey, what's up, you guys? So it seems like we are gonna be getting official answers for who is fighting for the lightweight title next, whether it's, Charles the Bronx, Justin Gaethje, or Arman Tsarukyan. It seems like we're gonna get all that information sooner rather than later. So please, you guys, I'm gonna go ahead and break this down. Like the video, comment down below, and subscribe. So, before I actually get into the news, I'm gonna go ahead and give you guys my personal opinion. I'm a huge fan of both, Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira. I think Arman Tsarukyan is an amazing fighter as well. I feel for the most part in the MMA community, 48% of fans, are going for Justin Gaethje, to get the next title shot. Then the other 48, are rooting for Charles the Bronx, to get the rematch. And then there's just that 2%, fan base, probably all friggin' Armenians, going for Arman Tsarukyan. I tend to sway back and forth, between who I personally would like to see fight Islam next. I love the idea of Charles Oliveira. I think that's such a competitive fight. I know the first fight was kind of a blowout. You could say what you want about that fight, that that fight, Charles wasn't himself, yeah. I just think all around, you do that fight 10 times out of 10, I don't think it ends like that. I think it is a lot more competitive of a fight than, people make it seem. But, to be 100% honest with you, I haven't been, always the biggest fan of giving guys, a title shot after they go back and, fight just one contender, when they were previously champion. I do, in fact, like the idea of that former champion going ahead and actually racking up a couple of wins, 2 wins, and then getting a title shot. Many good examples of this is, like Robert Whittaker, before he fought Izzy the second time, he had to go back and get a couple wins. Same thing with a guy like Max Holloway before he fought Volk, the third time he had to go back and, get a couple wins. I feel like there's numerous, examples of this, throughout history. But yeah, like I said, for the most part, I think that a former champion should, take a step down and fight the up and coming contenders. And, then you go ahead and give them the title shot, unless it just makes sense to just go ahead and give it to them regardless. And in this situation specifically with Charles Oliveira, I don't think it makes sense to just give it to him, because Justin Gaethje is there. And, I understand that, people, on the Charles side, they'll be like, well, Charles beat Justin. Yeah, Charles beat Justin, but that was 2 years ago at this point. And, Justin, since then, he came back, got an amazing performance over Rafael Fiziev, an up-and-coming contender. And then he finished Dustin Poirier in a massive fight, a pay-per-view headliner. He's now the owner of the BMF belt. And I feel like Justin has so much momentum going for him right now. As well as you also got to understand, Justin is an exciting fighter, a really, really exciting fighter. I understand Charles is as well, but, what sells, what the people want to see, they want to see exciting fighters in there. So it's not like Justin is boring and, maybe they'll give it to him. No, the UFC knows that he has an exciting style and, that could give Islam some challenges. So for the most part, as I stand right now, I'd like to see Justin get the next title shot. I know there's talks of, him and Max Holloway. I even personally said in my UFC 300 video, I'd like to see him and Dustin run it back, for that fight. But, since then we've learned of a possible Nate Diaz fight. And so honestly, I don't know where either one of these guys go. I think it is kind of a little bit of a mess at lightweight. We have to see how the matchmakers go ahead and, book all of these different guys. But, as of right now, I do think you do Justin versus Islam. And, it does seem like that is potentially the direction that, the UFC and Dana White, are leaning towards. Charles Oliveira, on his story, he went ahead and posted, reposted a fan picture of him. And, in the caption, it said Charles is back. I'm pretty sure we can all assume that that means, Charles Oliveira, is back and he's gonna have a fight sooner rather than later. Conveniently enough, Arman Tsarukyan also posted something very similar with him saying, there's a big fight announcement for him coming soon. Now, of course, with these two guys posting that, it doesn't necessarily mean that, they're going to be matched made together. But, I'm just kind of using context clues here. If you take out Charles out of the equation and you take out, you know, Arman out of the equation at the same time, and they're both saying the same thing, probably means that those guys are likely to be matched up, and that fight makes 100% sense to me. You know, looking at the top 5 at lightweight, we don't know what's going on with Chandler. We don't know if he's going to fight McGregor. If he's not, you know, what's going to happen. Then obviously, you know, Dustin Poirier, I think we all know that, you know, they're not going to make that fight happen between Dustin and Arman Tsarukyan. And then, you know, just left is Charles and Justin. And, you know, like I said before, you know, a fight with Charles Oliveira makes a lot more sense to me than a fight with Justin Gaethje. You know, Charles is on his redemption arc, you know, getting back to the world title. So, you know, any up-and-coming challengers, you know, that makes, you know, sense for him. While as Justin, you know, I think he's in his superstar phase, man. You know, he not just knocked out Dustin Poirier. It's really only more bigger fights from here. And, you know, I love this idea, man. I love both fights, and, man, this is a title eliminator that we have in our hands, you know, Charles versus Arman. You know, I would have said before December that, you know, Charles would absolutely fraud check, you know, Arman Tsarukyan. But the way that Arman just ran through Beneil Dariush, I mean, who knows now? I think it's a little bit more of a competitive fight. I do still give the edge to Charles Oliveira because he's had that championship experience. He's been there with the guys at lightweight. And, you know, I think it's pretty inevitable. But when Arman takes down Charles Oliveira, gets in Charles' guard, and starts landing those vicious ground and pound elbows, the fight could be over right there and then. You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You know, Arman Tsarukyan has the nastiest ground and pound, you know, in the lightweight division, and pound for pound, you know, up there with all these other guys. I mean, when you see him on top of a guy, he is landing, you know, to cut, to hurt guys. So, you know, I do in fact think, you know, that will be a major factor in the Charles Oliveira fight. I also think because he is very young, he will be a little bit more reckless and, you know, willing to trade with Charles. You know, what I mean is he won't be scared, you know, to follow Oliveira to the ground, kind of taking a similar approach to Islam. And, you know, that is a very fun fight, so I'm very excited, you know, if and when they announce it. And, you know, I think this seemingly confirms, you know, Islam versus Justin for the lightweight title. I have seen a lot of people in the MMA community, you know, talking about, you know, Islam potentially returning in March, you know, for that Saudi Arabia card. I don't know how much I buy into that, actually. I'm not saying it can't happen, you know, just because I know Saudi Arabia is known for, you know, putting on these massive fights over there. You know, these guys are known for putting on those high profile fights over there in their arena during, you know, their season. And, you know, with the UFC going over there, I do see, you know, some big fights somewhat over there. I just don't see a world title fight, you know, on a fight night card. I do think the UFC knows the value of that. But you know, honestly, who knows? You know, I'm sure that if the opportunity presents itself, you know, the UFC will. But you know, honestly, who knows? You know, I'm sure that if the opportunity presents itself, you know, the UFC will talk with Islam, you know, and I'm sure the, you know, people from Saudi Arabia will try to convince Dana as much as possible to make it happen. But I'm not sure. I think the more likely scenario is that we see this fight in the summertime. But yeah, you guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Do you think Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan is the right move, or would you guys have rather seen, you know, Charles fight for the belt? I say, you know, rather seeing, like, you know, this is all but confirmed, you know, this is still all speculation. But let me know your thoughts down below. Please, you guys, like the video, comment down below, and subscribe. I'll catch you guys later. Peace.